believing in peace. Because when I was 9 years old, my brother Taysir was arrested and taken on suspicion of throwing stones. He was later on tortured, killed after he was out of prison. I was 9 years old then, and I was very angry, bitter, and all I wanted was revenge. This is me and Taysir, and you might wonder, I'm the younger one. I used to look cute, and something happened at some point. But this experience has changed my life, because for years after, I was just very angry. And it took me a while, only when I studied Hebrew, 8 years later, in an Ulpan, that I met Jews and Israelis who were not soldiers or settlers. And that was the point that I started realizing they don't know my narrative, and I don't know theirs. I dedicated my life from that point to breaking down the walls that separate people. And you can do it in many ways. I do it through media, education, tourism. And tourism is the best way to do it. And it might sound crazy, but it's the best sustainable way to do it, because it's a sustainable way to do it in a manner of business, that it keeps going on. It brings down stereotypes. Amichai, you know who Amichai is, right? Right? The poet, the poem, say, when he was talking about Jerusalem and a group of tourists, and a man sitting next to Jaffa Gate, and he said, I was watching them, using him as a target for what's going on. And he goes how the tour guide is saying, you see that man there, just to the right of him, you go up, there's a Roman arch, it's from the Roman period. He said, I say to myself, redemption will only come if their guide says, you see that arch from the Roman period? It's not important. But next to it, left and down a bit, there sits a man who bought fruit and vegetables for his family. In 2009, I co-founded Majdi, a tour company with two Jewish friends, one a rabbi, Mark Gopin, to do exactly that, to bring people to understand different narratives. We started in Jerusalem with two tour guides, one Israeli and one Palestinian, co-leading trips together, arguing politics, history, archaeology, all that stuff together. And I remember taking a group of Jews to refugee camp in Deheshe. They never been there. And they stayed with Palestinian refugees for 2 nights. And that was an experience, eating ma'luba, which you saw earlier, having to dance with them, going out nightlife in refugee camps, smoking shisha. These stuff that they've never had, but have the personal relationship that was sustainable. As a kid, I remember tourists passing by me, taking a picture of me as a lifeless object. And I was very interested. I wanted to learn English, I wanted to talk to them, but completely ignored me. There are 1 billion people who travel internationally every year. I want you to think with me. If those 1 billion people change the way that they travel, that they're not going in their bus from one side to another, from one hotel to another, not meeting any human being on their trip, but rather starting to have an interaction, starting to meet people, know them, understand them, having an authentic experience, multiple narratives, knowing the life, the challenges that people go through. Also, have fun, dance, as you can see. I remember taking a Muslim group, spending Shabbat dinner in Jerusalem with a Jewish group. They've never done that before. They were actually from the UK. And finding out how connected they are. Actually, they found out their families from North Africa, both of them from 100 years ago, and found out that they're from the same city. Things that we don't think about that can change the world. If 1 billion people can do that, what would that do to us? Now, we took that model and decided if it works in Israel and Palestine, and we can do it with Israelis and Palestinians. By the way, tons of people have been coming. It proved to be working. We're running National Geographic trips. We're running for synagogues, for Christians, for universities, and giving that relationship, as I'm talking about. Sometimes this group, the Jewish group I mentioned in the Deheshe camp, 4 years later, they still have those relationships. They still have those friendships. But we started applying this model to other countries, in places like in Turkey, actually more maybe close to here, places like Ireland, where we have an island instead of Israeli and Palestinian, Northern Ireland. Any guesses? Come on, you're from the UK, you got to know. People, you can have Catholics and Protestants. Places where you can go, there's still a peace wall. People are segregated in Northern Ireland as well. Catholics live on one side, Protestants, even the bars are segregated. I had to figure out where I'm going, Catholic or Protestant places. Places like Egypt, where you have a Christian and narrative tour guides. And we realized every place you travel to, even if it's not a conflict place, there are narratives you never hear. I mean, people go to Egypt, go to the pyramids, as if Egyptians don't exist. 10 million people used to go to Egypt every year annually and didn't have any relationship with the people there. Now we are trying to change that. I'll just say one more sentence. Ibn Battuta said, since I quoted many Jews, I have to quote one Arab traveler. Ibn Battuta, famous Arab traveler, he said, when you travel, you become speechless. But then that turns you into a storyteller. And that's what changes the world.